Joining me now to share their insights, former number 2 during the Ken Starr Whitewater investigation, Saul Weisenberg, CNN legal analyst Shan Wu. He previously represented former Manafort partner and deputy Rick Gates, and CNN crime and justice reporter Shimon Prokopez. Let me just start with the president. Norms are broken every day in this presidency, but for a president of the United States, forget the name, any president of the United States to speak publicly during a trial of somebody, this trial is about mostly nothing to do with the Trump campaign, but to speak publicly about a trial while a jury is in the room.
Well, it's very troubling, and I mean, he's got his own Justice Department prosecutors. It's not just Mueller's people. He's got his own DOJ prosecutors, Uzo Asonye there, working on that case. I think what's really going on here, unfortunately, is, it only takes one juror to get a hung jury. One of our final trials was in the Eastern District of Virginia when I worked for Ken Starr. The jury deadlocked 11-1 for conviction. We talked to the jurors afterwards, and there was one person on that jury who was not going to vote against Bill Clinton. And all you need is one juror, and that's one of the things that makes the president's comments so very disturbing.
And so let's come back to the jury. It's a risky business. It's been a while, but I used to cover trials when I first started in this business. And the jury comes back with questions, and that's when everybody starts, trying to get the Ouija board and figure the tarot cards and figure out. A jury coming in and saying, define reasonable doubt or redefine reasonable doubt. Does that tell you what? Are there any clues to that? Should the prosecution be worried? They're not sure what reasonable doubt is?
I would have been worried last night. As a prosecutor, you really don't like to even hear the phrase reasonable doubt, so don't even like to say it in the courtroom myself when I was a prosecutor. The timing was worrisome yesterday because it seemed very early for them to be asking that. It could have indicated some dissension. On the other hand, it's been quiet today, I think, in terms of substantive questions, and they may have been just taking care of their initial doubts, whatever they thought was a little bit weaker, and maybe they're very certain about the rest of the case. Sometimes they do that.
And anything out of the courtroom today?
No, all we know is that lunch was delivered to them just a short time ago, so they're working through lunch, which is always a good sign. And I think to Shan's point here is that we all kind of sit around. Now, this is like probably the worst time for lawyers who are trying this case, is that you're just trying to read tea leaves. But nothing. It seems like they're just working. I think even their questions yesterday really had to do with the law. It doesn't sound like any of the questions had anything to do with the evidence or they had any doubts about the evidence. It really had to do with the law, which is what you would normally see with jurors. Like, they're working through the different charges and have questions about the law.
And again, just for those of you maybe not paying day-to-day attention to the trial, 5 counts of tax fraud, 4 counts of hiding foreign bank accounts, 9 counts of bank fraud. The president says it's sad what they're doing. If there's evidence to support that, that's the government's job, is it not? Whether he's the former Trump campaign chairman or whether he's a businessman who has nothing to do with politics?
Oh, if you're looking at it as an isolated trial, of course, the president is echoing some of the comments made by the judge, unfortunately, in this case, who says, look, you're only after Manafort because you're really going after Trump. I don't think it's right, but the law allows you to do it. My take on the questions is you can't tell anything from the questions, except there's only one question the jury asked that was really substantive and important, and it was, what if you don't control 50% of a foreign bank account on paper, but you really do control disposition of the assets? Do you have to notify the IRS on that? And the judge reread the portion of the jury instructions that said, yes, you do. That was really the only thing that I thought was significant, because that's really a question that could be answered and that's crucial to some of the counts.
A smart question related to very complicated overseas banking rules and everything. So it tells you the jury is plugged in right there. Do you make anything of it? We got 18 criminal charges, 27 prosecution witnesses, no witnesses called by the defense. Does that, again, the Constitution says you do not have to present a defense. The Constitution says the defendant does not have to testify. From your experience, does that matter to a jury? Are they in there saying, why? Why did Paul Manafort say nothing? Why didn't they give us anybody to challenge? They challenged Rick Gates and Cross, but why didn't they bring anybody in to help us?
I think that's in the back of their minds a little bit, but I think that jurors tend to really follow the judge's instructions, and when they're told not to consider that, they don't. I think the defense is sending a slight message that we feel confident. We're happy to sit back and attack and say they haven't proven their case. And of course, as a practical matter, they may have lacked any good evidence to put forth too.
But I also think that what we're seeing from this jury, it looks like that had no effect on them. The fact that, I mean, they've been deliberating, when you think about it, 10, 11 hours now, that's a lot of time. And it's clear that the fact that Manafort did not put a defense has had no effect so far, at least in terms of how they're thinking from what we're seeing.
And a quick last point, news organizations are going to see this judge this afternoon. They're trying to get transcripts of portions, pull-aside conferences between the attorneys in the case, which happens all the time. They want those released. It looks like the judge is inclined to do that, with the exception possibly of the one conversation about Rick Gates not testifying about something very significant, right?
Right. This is a special counsel investigation. They had a sidebar that he has sealed. These are all sealed transcripts now. The judge sealing these transcripts, he said he's going to release some of them. Obviously, the one where they talked about Rick Gates' cooperation and other information that he's been providing the special counsel, that is not going to be made public.
Well, I appreciate you all coming in. I'm going to ask the staff to hold you guys hostage until we get a jury verdict. Sorry you can't leave the building.